The Elephant and the Ant. Once upon a time, in a vast, green forest, lived a mighty elephant named Elroy. Elroy was known throughout the land for his size and strength. He could push trees with his tusks and stomp the ground so hard that it would shake. He was a towering figure of power, and all the creatures in the forest revered him. Despite his great strength, Elroy had a soft heart. He loved all the animals in the forest, and he often used his size and strength to help others. However, despite his towering figure, there was one creature that didn't seem to fear him at all. This creature was an ant named Andy. Andy was small, barely noticeable to most of the larger animals, but he had a big personality. He was known for being clever, quick-witted, and brave. Though he was tiny, Andy never backed down from a challenge, no matter how big the opponent was. Andy was small, barely noticeable to most of the larger animals, but he had a big personality. He was known for being clever, quick-witted, and brave. Though he was tiny, Andy never backed down from a challenge, no matter how big the opponent was. One day, as Elroy was walking through the forest, he noticed Andy carrying a heavy leaf on his back. The leaf was much larger than Andy, and he was struggling to move it. Elroy, ever the helpful giant, approached Andy and said, "Little ant, that leaf is much too big for you. Allow me to help you carry it." Andy, who had been concentrating hard on moving the leaf, paused for a moment. He looked up at Elroy and smiled. "Thank you, Elroy, but I am perfectly fine. I don't need your help." Elroy was surprised. "But you're so small, and the leaf is so large. Surely it's too much for you to carry alone." Andy shook his tiny head. "I am strong enough for the task, Elroy. I may be small, but I know my limits, and I always find a way to carry what I need." Elroy, still feeling concerned, watched as Andy slowly made his way across the forest floor, the enormous leaf still on his back. The elephant couldn't help but admire the little ant's determination. As the days passed, Elroy continued to watch Andy. He saw the tiny ant carry leaves, sticks, and even small pieces of food, always working with great effort and persistence. Elroy, in turn, helped other animals around the forest, always using his great strength for tasks that required it. But no matter how big or difficult the challenge, Elroy couldn't shake the feeling that Andy, the small ant, was just as important as he was. One day, disaster struck the forest. A terrible storm swept through, shaking trees and causing massive floods. The rain poured down in torrents, and the wind howled through the trees. The forest creatures scrambled to find shelter from the storm. Elroy, being large and strong, managed to find a cave where he could take refuge. He entered and curled up, safe from the storm. But when the storm finally passed, Elroy realized that many of the smaller animals in the forest had lost their homes. The floodwaters had swept away nests, burrows, and shelters, leaving many creatures stranded and scared. Elroy immediately set to work, using his great strength to help rebuild the homes of the smaller animals. He carried heavy logs, moved rocks, and cleared debris. But he soon realized that some animals needed more help than he could give. The smaller creatures, such as the birds, the rabbits, and the squirrels, all needed places to stay. Elroy worked tirelessly, but even with all his effort, he couldn't help everyone. Feeling helpless, he sat down to rest. Just then, he heard a small voice. "Elroy, what's wrong?" It was Andy, the ant. "I've tried to help, but I can't do enough," Elroy said, his voice filled with sorrow. "I can move heavy things, but there's only so much I can do." Andy walked over to him, a confident gleam in his tiny eyes. "Elroy, you've done so much already. But now, it's my turn." Before Elroy could respond, Andy scurried off, returning with dozens of his ant friends. Together, they began working quickly and efficiently, using their small size to their advantage. They carried tiny twigs, leaves, and other materials to build makeshift shelters for the smaller animals. They worked in harmony, each ant doing its part. As the ants worked, Elroy watched in awe. Despite their size, the ants managed to do what he couldn't: build dozens of small shelters in no time at all. Elroy couldn't believe how much these tiny creatures could accomplish when they worked together. After hours of hard work, the forest animals now had new homes, and the smaller creatures had places to shelter. Elroy felt a deep sense of pride in the work that had been done. He walked up to Andy and said, "You and your friends have done something incredible, Andy. You've taught me an important lesson today." Andy smiled, his tiny eyes twinkling. "It's not about size, Elroy. It's about how we use what we have. You have strength, and I have speed and teamwork. Together, we can do anything." Elroy nodded, understanding the lesson. "I see now. You don't need to be big to make a big difference. We all have our own strengths, and it's when we use them together that we truly become powerful." From that day forward, Elroy and Andy became great friends. They continued to help the animals in the forest, with Elroy using his strength and Andy using his cleverness. And every time they worked together, they were reminded of the power of teamwork and the importance of valuing every creature, no matter how big or small. The forest became a place of unity, where every animal, no matter its size, played a crucial role. And the lesson that Elroy learned from Andy stayed with him forever: true strength lies not only in power but in how we use our abilities to help others.